Black woman raised the rich kids like her own. Mother saw everything the first time. 6-year-old Lily called Miss Ruth Mom. Her real mother was not in the room, but she still saw it. It happened on a gray Tuesday morning in the big white house on the hill, the one with long glass windows and cameras in every corner for safety. The kitchen smelled like pancakes and syrup. Cartoons played low on the TV over the counter. Lily sat on the high stool in her pink pajamas, curls wild, eyes still sleepy. Miss Ruth stood at the stove in her faded sneakers, moving slow and sure, flipping pancakes like she had done 1,000 times. "Mama, can I have more?" Lily said, without thinking, holding out her small plate. Her brother Jordan, 8 years old and trying to act cool, snorted. "That's not Mom," he muttered, but even he sounded unsure. Miss Ruth froze for half a second. The spatula in her hand stopped in the air. Then she smiled, soft and sad, and set another pancake on Lily's plate. "You can have more, baby," she said, "but save some room for fruit." Upstairs, in her home office that felt more like a glass box, Claire watched the nanny cam feed on her laptop while typing an email. She saw Lily's mouth form the word mama. She saw how natural it looked. How easy. Claire's fingers paused on the keys. The email she was writing to some client about a big deal suddenly blurred. For a moment, she could not breathe right. This was her kitchen, her children, her house, and yet the woman they ran to first each morning did not share their face. She shared their cereal, their scraped knees, their secrets. Claire could hit a button and make Miss Ruth disappear from the screen, but she could not unsee what she had just seen. The black woman in the worn blue apron, the one who came on the 6 a.m. bus from the other side of town, had just been given a name that was supposed to belong to her. Miss Ruth was not new to raising other people's children. By the time she came to work for the Harris family, she was 43 years old and had wiped more noses, tied more shoes, and packed more school lunches than she could count. She had done it in small houses and big houses, in apartments that smelled like fried onions and in mansions that smelled like lemon polish and money. She had done it while her own child grew up mostly without her. Her daughter Nya was 16 now, tall and sharp-eyed, living with Miss Ruth's sister in a cramped place across town. When Miss Ruth was young, she had dreamed of being a nurse. She started classes, but then Nya's father left. Her mother got sick. Bills piled up like dirty laundry. College went first. Dreams went second. Work became the whole list. She cleaned offices at night, watched babies in the day, caught sleep like it was something falling from the sky in small drops. She would kiss little rich cheeks goodnight and then come home so late that Nya was already asleep, math book open on her chest. "You always tired, Mama," Nya had said once, her voice half accusing, half sad. Miss Ruth had pulled her close. "I'm tired so you can rest one day," she whispered. But the years rolled by, and the resting never came. When a friend from church told her about a new job, live-out nanny and housekeeper for a fancy family in the suburbs, good pay, health insurance, she took it. The first day she stepped into the Harris house, the floor felt to clean under her shoes. The walls were white and wide. The fridge hummed, full of food she did not have to count. Jordan stared at her from behind his mother's leg, his hair perfect, his shirt already stained with something sticky. Lily hid her face in a stuffed rabbit. Claire, in a pressed blouse and gold watch, held out a hand. "We just need some help while I'm busy with work," she said. "The kids can be a lot." Miss Ruth smiled, hiding the twist in her chest. "Children are my work," she answered. "I'll take good care of them." She meant it. She always did. Days in the Harris house fell into a soft, steady rhythm, guided mostly by Miss Ruth's hands and voice. She arrived before the sun, slipping through the side door with her own old key, the one Claire had given her on a metal ring all by itself. The house would be quiet then, still dark, the kind of silence rich houses have, heavy and full. Miss Ruth would start the coffee maker, pack school lunches in neat lines. Turkey for Jordan, no crust, cream cheese and jelly for Lily, cut in little hearts. She wrote "Have a great day" in bright marker on napkins, even though no one had asked her to. She ironed small uniforms until the lines were sharp. She knew which stuffed animal had to be on which bed or there would be tears. She knew that Jordan liked his milk warm, not cold, because his stomach hurt otherwise, and that Lily was afraid of the sound the toilet made when it flushed in the dark. When the kids woke, it was her name they called, Mama Ruth. Jordan would yell down the stairs, "Are you here?" She would laugh. "Where else would I be?" She'd shout back, even though there were 100 other places she wished she could be, too. Claire floated in and out like a careful ghost. She would rush through the kitchen in heels, kissing the tops of their heads, checking her phone with one hand while picking at a piece of toast with the other. "You be good for Miss Ruth," she would say, not looking up. "Mommy has a big meeting." Sometimes Lily would grip her mother's skirt and beg her to stay. Claire would smile tight and pry her fingers off. "We talked about this," she'd say. "Mama works so we can live here. So you can have nice things." The kids would nod. But the person who helped them put their shoes on and wiped their tears after the door closed was not the one with the gold watch. It was the one with the bus pass in her pocket and a picture of her own daughter folded soft at the back of her wallet. Claire told herself she was doing it right. She was not like her own mother, who had stayed home and still never really seen her. Claire remembered piano recitals with an empty seat in the front row because her mom didn't like crowds. She remembered reaching out for comfort and finding only a cold hand and the words, "You're too sensitive, Claire. Toughen up." So Claire had toughened up. She studied hard, got into law school, then into a top firm. She married David, who loved her drive as much as her face, and they built a life made of long hours and long emails and a house with more rooms than they knew what to do with. When Jordan was born, she held him in the hospital, his small head under her chin, and promised out loud, "I will give you everything I never had." But she did not know that sometimes everything is just time. Human, slow, boring time. She went back to work 8 weeks after he was born. Nannies and cleaners moved in and out of their lives until Miss Ruth came, steady as a heartbeat. At first, Claire was grateful. Truly, Miss Ruth seemed to know what to do before Claire even asked. She stocked snacks, folded tiny socks in pairs, somehow got Jordan to eat peas without a fight. The house felt calmer when she was there. But slowly, things started to pinch. One evening, Claire came home early, rare as a solar eclipse. She stood outside the playroom, unseen, and watched. Inside, Miss Ruth sat on the floor, legs crossed, with Lily in her lap and Jordan leaning against her side. The TV was off. They were reading a book about a brown-skinned princess with curls like clouds. Miss Ruth did all the voices. The kids laughed and shouted out the lines with her. "Who loves you?" she asked at the end. "Mama Ruth." They yelled together, then burst into giggles. The words hit Claire like a slap she had not braced for. Later that night, she opened her laptop and scrolled back through camera clips. She watched Miss Ruth hold Lily's hand during a fever at 2 a.m., her own face tired but careful. She watched her kneel by Jordan after a bad day at school, listening as he choked out, "They said my hair is weird." She watched Miss Ruth show him pictures of famous black men with hair like his, pride in every word. Claire had not seen any of it in real life. But now, on the screen, she saw everything. The more Claire watched, the more twisted her heart became. Jealousy is an ugly thing, especially in a mother. It crept up on her slowly, like a bad smell from a trash can you forgot to take out. At first it was small stuff. A teacher at school called her at work to say, "Jordan was feeling sad today, but your nanny was amazing with him. You're lucky to have her." Lucky. The word stung. At a birthday party, another rich mom laughed and said, "Our kids adore your Miss Ruth. My Emma came home and said she wishes we had a black nanny too. They're all so warm." She said it like she was talking about a kind of pet. Claire smiled tight, her jaw aching. At dinner, Jordan pushed his peas around and said, "Mom, Miss Ruth says if you put a little cheese, it tastes better." Claire snapped, "Well, I'm your mother, and I say eat them how they are." The whole table went quiet. Later, she heard Lily tell her dolls, "Shh, we have to be good. Mama Ruth is tired." She has to go home to her other baby. Claire froze in the doorway. Her other baby. She repeated. What do you mean? Lily blinked. Her daughter, she said. Nia. She showed us her picture. She said she misses her. A hot wave of anger and fear rose in Claire's chest. Even though the picture was not a crime, she felt like someone had built another family inside her own house without asking her. That night, she told David, we need boundaries. She's getting too close. The kids are confused. David looked up from his tablet. Is that bad? He asked. She takes good care of them, Claire. That's what we pay her for, Claire. Slammed a cabinet a bit too hard. We don't pay her to be their mother, she said. But the truth was, she was not doing much of that job herself. And deep down, where she did not want to look, she knew it. While Claire wrestled with her hidden fear, Miss Ruth was fighting her own battles far from the polished floors of the Harris house. Every night after she left the big white home, after the kids were bathed and in bed and the dishwasher hummed quietly, she took the late bus back to her side of the city. The streetlights there were yellow and tired. The sidewalks were cracked. Her apartment was on the third floor of a building that always smelled like fried food and someone else's cigarette smoke. She would let herself in with a soft, hello. Even though she knew no one was there, Nia stayed at her aunt's. During the week now, closer to her school, because Miss Ruth's hours were so long. On Fridays, Nia came over, dropped her backpack on the couch, and flopped down with her phone. Some nights, they barely spoke more than 10 words. Not because they were angry, but because they were both so tired and did not know how to cross the space-time had put between them. One Wednesday, just as Miss Ruth was tying Jordan's shoes for soccer practice, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She almost ignored it, like she always did when she was on the job. But something in her ribs made her look. It was a text from her sister. Call me now. It's about Nia. Her chest squeezed. She stepped into the pantry, heart pounding, and called. Her sister's voice was tight. Don't panic, she began, which always meant there was something to panic about. The school called. Nia got into a fight. Police were involved. Ruth, they say if we don't handle this right, she could get a record. The word record echoed in Miss Ruth's head like a drum. Her baby, who still slept with the same teddy bear she'd had since she was 4, sitting in some school office with police. She felt the walls of the Harris pantry closing in. She could hear Lily in the kitchen, singing. She could hear Jordan asking where his other sock was. She was needed in 2 places at once, and once again, the rich house had her body while her own child sat on the edge of trouble alone. Miss Ruth wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and came out of the pantry. Miss Claire, she said, finding her in the front hall, half into her coat, talking into her Bluetooth earpiece. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to leave early today. It's my daughter. There was a problem at school. They called the police. I have to go. Claire frowned, annoyed at first, because she was already late for a big meeting downtown. Today, she said, we've had this gala on the calendar for weeks. I need you here tonight. The kids. My child is in trouble, Miss Ruth said, her voice shaking for the first time since Claire had known her. I left my girl too many times already. I can't do it today. Please. Jordan and Lily stood on the stairs, watching silently. Claire's anger spiked. Under it, fear and that old jealousy twisted together. You can't just walk out whenever you feel like it, she snapped. We count on you. We pay you very well. This is your job. Ruth. The word Joe landed heavy. Miss Ruth felt something in her soul buck. All the nights she had rocked their kids during storms. All the missed school plays of her own child because someone here needed her to work late. All the times she had eaten leftovers standing over their sink. It all tightened into one clear line. With respect, ma'am, she said slowly, my first job is being a mother. I have been raising your babies like they were my own. But I only get one, Nia. Her eyes shone. Every time I stay late here, my sister calls and says, she asked for you again tonight. And I say, tell her mama is working so she can have a better life. Her voice cracked. But what is the use of a better life if it breaks her? The hallway was very quiet. Even the ticking clock on the wall seemed to hold its breath. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it again. On the coat rack, her designer jacket looked like it belonged to someone else. That night turned into a line in the sand. Miss Ruth did leave. She grabbed her old purse and her bus card, kissed Jordan and Lily on their foreheads even as they clung to her arms, and walked out the front door with her head high and her heart breaking. On the ride across town, the city lights smeared into long, wet lines outside the bus window. She held her phone tight, whispering prayers under her breath, asking God, asking the air, asking her own tired soul to please let her reach Nia in time. Back at the big white house, after the kids finally cried themselves to sleep, Claire went into her office instead of going to the gala. Her dress hung untouched on the back of the chair. Her phone buzzed with texts from people at the event. "Where are you? The donors are asking." She ignored them all. Instead, she opened the NannyCam app again. For the first time, she did not watch the kids. She watched Miss Ruth. She scrolled back through months of footage. There was Miss Ruth on Halloween, sewing Jordan's last-minute costume late at night at their table while the kids slept. There she was at Christmas, gently hanging the kids' homemade paper ornaments on the tree where guests would see them, not just the shiny store-bought ones. There she was teaching Lily how to twist her curls with coconut oil, patient, smiling, explaining, "Your hair is a crown, baby, treat it like one, clip after clip, quiet act after quiet act." No one had paid her extra for any of it. No one had clapped. Claire watched Miss Ruth step out of every family photo, standing just out of frame so the Harris family could look picture perfect without the woman who made most of that perfect happen. She watched herself too, breezing in and out, always rushing, always saying, "Ask Miss Ruth," when the kids pulled at her sleeve. Somewhere between one video of a night terror soothed at 3 a.m. and another of a scraped knee kissed in the driveway, something inside Claire cracked open. She covered her face with her hands and cried in a way she had not cried since she was a child. She cried for the mother she had not been, for the woman she had used without really seeing, for the way money had made her blind. In a small, cold office at Nia's school, Miss Ruth sat in a hard plastic chair, holding her daughter's trembling hand. A tired officer explained that there had been a fight, that someone had shoved someone else, that words had turned into fists. "If this happens again, there will be charges," he said. Nia stared at the floor, jaw tight. Later, when they were alone, Nia burst out, "They said I was ghetto. Mom, they said you're a maid for rich white people." I got mad. The words sat between them like a hot coal. Miss Ruth swallowed, her throat burning. "I am not ashamed of what I do," she said. "Work is work. Feeding you is not shame." But she also knew Nia was not only mad about the insult. She was mad about the empty chairs at school events, the days when it was Auntie and not Mama who came. On the ride home, the bus swayed slow. Nia leaned her head on the foggy window. "You always there for their kids," she muttered. "Who's there for me?" Miss Ruth had no easy answer. 2 days later, there was a knock on her apartment door. When she opened it, Claire stood in the hallway, out of place in her expensive coat, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She held a grocery bag in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. Behind her, the neighbor's radio played old R&B through thin walls. "I got your address from the employment forms," Claire said quickly, as if she needed to explain. "I hope that's not weird." Miss Ruth just stared, stunned. Claire shifted from foot to foot. "I heard about Nia," she said. I talked to a friend of mine who works with youth cases. If there are any problems with school or police, she can help. No cost." She held out the paper with a number. "And I brought food. I didn't know what you liked, so I just guessed." The bag was heavy with simple things: rice, chicken, fresh fruit, milk. Not charity, just care. For the first time, Claire was in Miss Ruth's world. The hallway smelled like bleach and fried chicken. The stairs creaked. A kid's bike leaned on the wall. Claire's eyes took it all in. Miss Ruth saw her shoulders drop, just a little, as if some piece had finally clicked in her mind. "You didn't have to come," Miss Ruth said, voice low. "I know," Claire replied, "but I needed to. Time did not fix everything in one good deed. Life is not a movie that neat." But that visit was the first brick in a new road. Claire gave Miss Ruth paid time off to go to meetings at Nia's school, not as a favor, but as something owed. She started coming home before bedtime 3 nights a week, no matter what deal was burning. She sat on the floor with Jordan and Lily, awkward at first, used to talking to adults, not kids. She burned a batch of cookies. She messed up Lily's hair once and had to call Miss Ruth for help, laughing and crying at the same time. "Twist, don't brush," Miss Ruth said over the phone, warmth in her voice. Slowly, the kids stopped looking over Claire's shoulder to see if their nanny would walk in and fix it. They started to learn that their mother could learn too. Claire also changed how she talked about Miss Ruth. At school, when people said, "Your nanny is great," she corrected them gently. "She's part of our family," she'd say. "Her name is Miss Ruth." At home, she told the kids the truth. "Miss Ruth loves you so much," she said one night. "But I am your mother. I'm going to show up more now. I'm sorry it took me so long." Jordan, now 10, stared at her like he wasn't sure if it was safe to believe. "Are you gonna miss my games anymore?" he asked. "I'll miss some," she said honestly. "But not most. Not the big ones." On the other side of town, Nia started coming by the Harris house sometimes after school. At first she stayed near the door, stiff. Lily would peek around the corner and whisper, "Is that your real daughter?" Miss Ruth would smile. "She's my only daughter," she'd say, "and she's staying for dinner." One evening, Claire watched from the kitchen doorway as Nia and Jordan played video games, arguing like siblings. Miss Ruth sat on the couch, laughing. Claire felt something loosen inside her. This did not have to be a story of one family stealing another. It could be a story of two families holding each other up. Years later, on a warm June day, the sun poured over the high school football field like honey. Folding chairs lined the grass, filled with parents fanning themselves with programs. A stage stood at the front with a simple sign, "Class of 2034. Jordan, taller now, shoulders broad, hair still wild and proud, stood in a line of blue gowns, his cap crooked on his head. When they called his name, Jordan Harris, honors graduate, two women in the crowd stood at the exact same time. On the aisle, Claire rose, cheeks wet, clapping so hard her hands hurt. A few seats down, in a floral dress instead of a uniform, Miss Ruth stood too, her eyes shining, hands pressed together like she was holding a prayer. Beside her, Nia wiped her own tears and bumped her shoulder. "That's your boy," she whispered. "Our boy," Miss Ruth corrected, but she was smiling. When Jordan took the stage to give his speech as class speaker, he cleared his throat, hands shaking, then looked out over the sea of faces. His eyes found the two women who had stood for him more times than he could count. "Most people think one person today," he began, voice echoing through the speakers. "I have to think too." A soft murmur went through the crowd. "My mom, Claire, who worked hard so I could have chances she never did," he said. "And my mama Ruth, who held me when I was sick and told me my hair was a crown." Laughter and sniffles mixed. "You both taught me different things," he went on. "My mom taught me to fight for my place in the world. Mama Ruth taught me to remember where I stand and who stands with me." On the field, a small boy in the next row whispered, "Who's Mama Ruth?" His mother answered, "Someone very important, baby." When the ceremony ended, Jordan jumped off the stage and went straight to the two women. He pulled them both into one hard hug, caps and hair and shoulders pressed together. The cameras flashed, but nobody asked Miss Ruth to step out of the frame this time. Claire, without thinking, took Ruth's hand and squeezed it. "Thank you," she whispered in her ear, "for raising them, for raising me a little too." Miss Ruth laughed, the sound full and free. Mothers see everything, she said softly, even when we pretend we don't. The moral of this story is simple, but it is heavy. All over the world, women like Miss Ruth get up before dawn, ride long buses, and walk into houses that are not theirs to love children who will not carry their name. They wipe tears that are not on their own cheeks. They miss school meetings for their own kids so they can pack lunches for someone else's. Sometimes, the people in those nice houses forget that the help has a heart that breaks, a family that waits, a child who fights at school because someone used the word maid like an insult. But love leaves fingerprints. It cannot stay hidden in the corners of nanny cam videos forever. In this house, the rich mother finally opened her eyes and saw. She saw the years of quiet work. She saw the way her children leaned into a woman whose skin did not match theirs, whose bank account held more bills than money, but whose love never ran out. And when she saw, really saw, she changed. That was the justice here. Not just in money or gifts, but in honor, in respect, in showing up. Miss Ruth did not become rich in dollars. She became rich in something else, a daughter who understood her sacrifice, children who claimed her in public, a life where she no longer had to stand out of the picture. So, if you, one day, are blessed enough to have someone who loves your children like their own, do not let jealousy turn your eyes blind. Do not hide them in the background of your life. Pay them fair. Give them time for their own home. Say their name with pride, because one day, at some graduation or wedding or hospital bed, the truth will stand in front of you. The real measure of a mother is not blood or money. It is who was there, again and again, when little hands reached out in the dark,